clock is ticking, the fireworks are waiting, and everyone is counting down to a new beginning. But while the world celebrates, Jeremiah Fisher is caught in a storm of emotions he can't escape. For most people, New Year's Eve is about letting go of the past. For Jeremiah, it's the night he realizes he can't, because when the calendar flips and the cheers fill the air, all he can think about is one person, Belly. Imagine it. The night sky painted with sparks of light, streets glowing with laughter, families gathered in warmth, and voices rising in unison as the countdown echoes across every corner of town. It's the kind of night where the world feels full of possibility, where every second holds the promise of change. But for Jeremiah, that promise feels distant. He isn't celebrating. He isn't laughing with the crowd or clinking glasses of champagne. Instead, he's staring at his phone, the glow of the screen washing over his face like a spotlight on a stage he doesn't want to stand on. Around him, the world is alive with joy. Friends dance, couples steal kisses, fireworks climb higher into the sky. Yet Jeremiah's mind is far away, tangled in memories that won't leave him alone. He sees flashes of summer, the beach house, the late-night swims, the way Belly's laughter once filled every room. Those memories aren't fading with the year. They're growing louder, stronger. They remind him of everything he still hasn't said. A feelings buried under too many seasons of pretending to be okay as the final minutes of the year slip away. Jeremiah feels the weight of time pressing down on him. People around him are celebrating fresh starts, but Jeremiah can't move forward without facing what's behind him. He knows he has to do something reckless, maybe even foolish. Because if he stays silent tonight, if he lets the clock strike midnight without speaking, then another year will begin with regret. And that's something he cannot carry anymore, so he pulls away from the crowd, walking into the quiet of the night. The sound of laughter fades behind him, replaced by the soft hum of the wind and the distant crackle of fireworks. Alone now, he stops, staring at his phone once again. His thumb hovers over Belly's name. His heart races, each beat louder than the countdown echoing in the distance. He knows that one call could change everything, for better or for worse. But on this night, when the world celebrates second chances, Jeremiah realizes this might be his last chance to tell her how much she means to him. And so, as the seconds slip closer to midnight, Jeremiah makes his choice. The noise of celebration feels miles away. Even though Jeremiah can still hear the faint echo of voices counting down in the distance, 10, 9, 8, the crowd shouts with joy, but inside him there is no rhythm to match their excitement. His chest feels heavy, his hands restless, and every thought leads back to Belly. It's as if the night has split into two different worlds. One where everyone is celebrating, and another where Jeremiah stands completely still, frozen in the storm of his own emotions. He thinks about the year that has passed, and how much of it has been defined by silence. Silence when he wanted to tell her what he truly felt. Silence when he saw her choose someone else. Silence every time he laughed at her jokes, pretending it didn't sting to know her heart belonged to Conrad. That silence has been his companion, his shield, but also his prison. And tonight that prison feels unbearable. His mind replays images of Belly over and over, like a film reel stuck on loop. The way her hair fell across her shoulders that summer night at Cousins, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about things she loved. The sound of her voice when she said his name, soft, unassuming, but always enough to make his world feel brighter. These aren't just memories. They are anchors. And Jeremiah realizes he has been chained to them for too long. Every second that passes tonight pushes him closer to a decision he can no longer run from. His heart is loud, louder than the fireworks beginning to crackle overhead. He tells himself, it's just one call to wish her Happy New Year, but deep down, he knows it's more than that. It's not about the holiday or tradition or celebration. It's about timing, about choosing the moment when the world is shifting into something new and making sure she knows exactly where he stands before another year begins without her. The fear gnaws at him. What if she doesn't answer? What if she answers but doesn't care? Worse, what if she answers, listens, and then turns away, choosing silence in return? Jeremiah knows all those possibilities exist, and each one feels like a knife waiting to cut deeper than he's ever been hurt. But even that pain seems easier to bear than the weight of never trying. He looks at the phone again. And this time, he doesn't just see Belly's name. He sees everything it represents. Hope, heartbreak, love, loss, a future that could change with one small decision. The glow of the screen is steady, waiting for his touch, daring him to act. His thumb trembles above it, his breath shallow. He can feel the energy of the night pressing closer, fireworks filling the horizon, voices screaming 3, 2, 1. And still Jeremiah doesn't move. Because the truth is, this call isn't just about Belly. It's about him. About finding the courage to stop living in the shadow of what might have been and finally step into the light of what could be. So, while the world cheers and kisses and embraces, Jeremiah takes one shaky breath, closes his eyes, and prepares to do the one thing he's been afraid of all along. He's going to call her. The world outside is bursting with sound, fireworks exploding like thunder, cheers rattling the air, laughter spilling through the night like music, but for Jeremiah, everything has narrowed into silence. He doesn't hear the countdown anymore. He doesn't hear the celebration. He only hears the wild, uneven pounding of his own heartbeat as his thumb finally presses down on her name. The screen flashes. The call is dialing. It's such a simple action, something people do hundreds of times without thinking. But for Jeremiah, it feels like stepping off the edge of a cliff. Each second that passes as the line rings stretches out endlessly, a thin wire pulled tight with expectation and fear. He can feel his stomach twist, his throat dry up, his chest tighten, as if the act of waiting itself is suffocating. He imagines what she's doing right now. Maybe Belly is with her family. It's laughing in the living room as the ball drops on TV. Maybe she's with friends. Clinking glasses, her smile wide and unburdened. Maybe she's even thinking about someone else, Conrad, perhaps. The thought that has haunted Jeremiah more than anything else. The possibilities swirl through his mind like smoke, making the seconds heavier and heavier. The line keeps ringing. 1, 2, 3. The sound fills his ears, louder than the fireworks, louder than the crowd. It's relentless, unforgiving, reminding him that every moment she doesn't pick up could mean she won't. His grip on the phone tightens. He tells himself he can hang up, that no one would know, that he can bury this weakness and start the year pretending again. But his body doesn't listen. His thumb hovers near the screen, yet he can't make himself press end, because the truth is, he doesn't want to escape this moment. He wants to face it, even if it breaks him. And then, the ringing stops. For a split second, Jeremiah's breath catches in his throat. Silence floods the line, heavy and absolute. His mind races. Did she reject the call? Did the connection drop? Or is she there on the other end, just as stunned, just as frozen as he is? Then he hears it. The faint sound of movement, the tiniest pause before a voice comes through. A voice that instantly shatters the distance, the years, the doubts. Hello. It's her Belly. Her voice is soft, cautious, almost uncertain, as though she wasn't expecting this call, as though the sound of his name on her screen left her just as conflicted as he feels. Jeremiah closes his eyes. Relief washes over him, but it's tangled with fear, because now the real test begins. He's reached her. He's broken through the silence, and whatever happens next will define not just the night, but everything between them. With his heart racing and his breath shaking, Jeremiah finally speaks. His words are simple, quiet, almost fragile, but they carry the weight of everything he has left unsaid. Happy New Year. Belly. For Belly, the night had been ordinary, familiar, almost predictable. She was curled on the couch, the TV humming in the background as the New Year's broadcast filled the room with bright colors and countdown numbers. Her family moved in and out of the room, their laughter and voices warm, filling the space with comfort. To anyone looking in, it was a picture of peace, a simple family night that carried no drama, no tension. But inside Belly's heart, things were never that simple. She wasn't expecting her phone to buzz. She wasn't waiting for anyone to call. When it lit up on the coffee table, her eyes drifted toward it with mild disinterest, only for her body to freeze when she saw the name glowing across the screen. Jeremiah. In that instant, the warmth of the room seemed to dim. Her chest tightened, her breath caught, and her fingers trembled without even touching the phone. For a moment, she simply stared, as if the name itself carried the weight of every summer, every memory, every unspoken word that lingered between them. She hadn't been ready for this. Not tonight, not like this. Her family's voices blurred into the background. She couldn't hear the TV anymore. All she could hear was the question ringing inside her head. Why is he calling me? Her first instinct was to ignore it, to let the ringing fade away, to pretend she hadn't seen it, to protect herself from the whirlwind she knew would come the moment she picked up. But something inside her, some stubborn pull, some hidden thread, wouldn't let her look away, against every piece of logic screaming at her to keep her distance. Belly reached out and pressed accept, and then she heard him. Happy New Year, Belly. The sound of his voice sent a shiver down her spine. It was gentle, almost uncertain, but undeniably Jeremiah. For a second, her throat went dry. She couldn't find words, couldn't decide how to respond, because beneath the simple greeting, she heard something else, the weight of longing, of vulnerability, of things unsaid. Her heart raced. Part of her wanted to smile, to return the greeting with warmth, to fall back into the easy comfort Jeremiah had always given her. But another part of her recoiled, wary of what this call meant, because Belly knew Jeremiah too well. He didn't call without reason. Not on this night. Not at this moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft, almost a whisper. Jeremiah. Just his name. Nothing more. Because saying his name alone carried its own story. It held every laugh they'd shared, every tear, every choice that had pulled them together and torn them apart. She sat there, phone pressed against her ear, torn between relief and fear. Relief that he was still there, still reaching for her. Fear that his reaching meant she'd have to confront the feelings she had worked so hard to bury. The fireworks outside boomed louder, filling the sky with color. But Belly barely noticed, because in that quiet, fragile space between her and Jeremiah, everything felt uncertain. Every second hung heavy with possibility for healing, or heartbreak, or both at once. And as she sat in silence, waiting for him to say more, Belly realized that this call wasn't just about Jeremiah's feelings. It was about hers, too. Feelings she wasn't sure she wanted to face on the very first night of a brand new year. The silence stretched between them like a fragile thread, thin enough to snap with the slightest pull. For a moment, neither spoke, each waiting for the other to make the next move. Jeremiah's simple, Happy New Year. Belly lingered in the air, tender yet uncertain. Like a question disguised as a greeting, Belly sat curled on the couch, her knees tucked close to her chest, phone pressed against her ear as if the device itself might slip away. She could hear the muffled sound of fireworks through the receiver, distant booms and cracks that she knew weren't her own. They were his. He was somewhere else, surrounded by a different kind of noise, a different kind of night. And yet, in that moment, it felt like they were the only two people in the world. She cleared her throat softly, her voice finally pushing through the quiet. Happy New Year, she replied. Her words were gentle, almost careful, as if she were afraid that saying them too loudly might shatter the fragile balance of this moment. On the other end, Jeremiah let out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. The sound was subtle, but Belly heard it. It wasn't just relief. It was something deeper, heavier. It was the sound of someone who had been waiting a very long time to hear her voice again. The conversation stumbled at first, both of them caught between wanting to say everything and not knowing where to begin. Jeremiah spoke next, his voice low, almost shy. I wasn't sure if you'd pick up. Belly's heart tightened. There was honesty in his tone, a kind of vulnerability she wasn't used to hearing from him. She hesitated, searching for the right words. I almost didn't, she admitted, her voice softer than she intended. That small confession hung between them, weighted but real. Jeremiah's lips curved into the faintest smile, though his chest still ached. "But you did," he said simply, and that truth was enough to spark something. It's a fragile warmth threading its way through the uncertainty. For a brief second, Belly could almost feel the familiar ease they once shared. The late-night talks, the playful banter, the way Jeremiah could make her laugh when no one else could. But the warmth was tangled with something else. Tension, unspoken questions, the shadow of choices that had left scars on both of them. Their words came slowly, tentative, like two people testing the ground after a storm. Jeremiah asked, "How's your night?" His tone was casual, but Belly could hear the weight beneath it. He didn't just want to know about her evening. He wanted to know about her, where she was, how she was, if she was happy, if she was okay. Belly swallowed, unsure how much to give. "It's fine. Quiet, just here with my family," she answered, her eyes darting toward the TV still flashing in the background. She didn't mention the heaviness in her chest. The way his call had unsettled everything she thought she had neatly tucked away. There was a pause, a long one, filled with the echoes of everything unsaid. Jeremiah shifted, pressing the phone tighter to his ear, as if he could somehow close the distance between them. "I didn't mean to interrupt," he murmured. I couldn't let the year start without hearing your voice." Belly froze, her heart thundering at his words. They were simple, but they cut straight to the truth. Jeremiah wasn't calling out of habit or politeness or even tradition. He was calling because he needed her, or at least needed to know she was still there. Still a part of his world? Her voice wavered as she replied. "You didn't interrupt," but even as she said it, she knew the truth. He had interrupted. Not her evening, not her family's celebration, but the fragile peace she had been clinging to. The conversation was only just beginning. But already, the air was thick with everything they weren't saying. And though both of them tried to keep it light, to mask the storm beneath their words, they could feel it rising, pulling them toward something deeper, something they couldn't avoid much longer. Jeremiah sat with the phone pressed tightly against his ear, the sound of Belly's voice echoing inside him like a wave he didn't want to let fade. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't empty. It was charged, fragile, like a string pulled taut between them. He could hear faint sounds in the background on her end. A TV, distant laughter, the muffled hum of her family. But more than that, he could hear her breathing, steady, careful, waiting. His chest tightened. He had started this call with a simple greeting, but now that Belly was here, on the other end of the line, he realized how much more he wanted to say, how much he needed to say. His whole body felt restless, as though every word he'd swallowed over the past year was clawing to finally break free. "I know this is unexpected," Jeremiah began, his voice low, cautious. He forced a small laugh, but it came out uneven, edged with nerves. "Honestly, I wasn't even sure I'd have the guts to hit call." Belly didn't answer right away. That pause, that long, heavy pause, made his throat tighten. He rushed to fill the silence, his words tumbling out. It's New Year's. Everyone's moving forward, right? Starting fresh. And I couldn't let another year start without telling you something. Without, at least." He stopped himself, biting back the rest. He ran a hand through his hair, his pulse pounding so loudly, he wondered if she could hear it through the phone. He wanted to sound composed, but his voice betrayed him, breaking on the edges of sentences. "Belly, I've been carrying this around for too long. I keep pretending I'm fine, that I've moved on, that I can just let it all go. But I can't." His honesty hung between them, raw and unpolished. It scared him, laying it bare like this, because Jeremiah wasn't used to being vulnerable. He was the easy one, the one who made jokes, the one who laughed things off when the air got too heavy. But tonight, laughter couldn't save him. Tonight, the weight in his chest demanded to be spoken. "I miss you," he said finally, his voice cracking on the words. Simple, direct, honest. The kind of truth he had been too afraid to admit until this very moment. On her end, Belly's breath caught. Jeremiah heard it, the slight intake of air, sharp and quick, as if his confession had struck straight into her. He closed his eyes, gripping the phone tighter. "I don't expect anything from you," he added quickly, his words tumbling over each other in desperation. "I just needed you to know. Because if I start another year without saying it, I don't think I can keep pretending anymore." The vulnerability in his tone was unmistakable. It wasn't a performance, wasn't an attempt to win her over. It was Jeremiah at his most stripped down, scared, uncertain, willing to risk rejection for the sake of truth. For a long moment, Belly said nothing. Jeremiah's chest burned with the silence, but he didn't take it back. He couldn't, because the weight had already been lifted, at least a little. For once, the truth wasn't locked inside him anymore. And in that silence, Jeremiah realized something. Whatever Belly said next, whether it healed him or shattered him, he had finally been honest. And maybe, just maybe, that honesty would be the first step toward finally finding peace. Belly sat frozen, Jeremiah's words echoing in her ears long after he had spoken them. "I miss you." It was simple. Only 3 words. But they crashed against her heart like a wave she hadn't braced for. She stared at the TV across the room, the bright images flickering and changing, but none of it registered. Her family's voices faded into static, the world around her blurring into the background. In that moment, all she could feel was the weight of Jeremiah's confession pressing down on her, stirring up every memory she had tried so hard to bury. Part of her wanted to smile, because wasn't this what she had once dreamed of? Jeremiah, the boy who had always been her safe place, finally speaking the truth she had sensed but never heard. He was open, vulnerable, raw, in a way he rarely allowed himself to be. And hearing him admit that he missed her, it pulled at her heart, reminding her of late nights at Cousins, of sand beneath their feet, of the way his laughter could chase away the darkest clouds. But another part of her recoiled, because behind Jeremiah's voice, another name hovered in her thoughts. Conrad, the boy who had broken her heart and yet still held pieces of it, scattered and unfinished. Conrad, whose silence hurt her as much as his presence once healed her. Conrad, who lived in the spaces Jeremiah couldn't reach, or maybe wouldn't try to. Belly hated that her mind went there. Hated that, even now, with Jeremiah pouring his heart out, she couldn't silence the shadow of someone else. And that was the cruel truth of her conflict. She cared for Jeremiah deeply. She always had. But caring wasn't simple. It wasn't enough to erase the ache of her first love, nor was it enough to silence the guilt of what choosing Jeremiah might mean for the fragile balance. Between the brothers, her hands trembled around the phone. She pressed it tighter to her ear, as though holding it closer might help her find clarity. But clarity didn't come. Instead, her chest filled with questions that had no easy answers. What if I tell him I feel the same? I'm only lying to myself. What if I push him away and it's a mistake I can never undo? What if I choose him, but I lose them both? Her silence stretched, and she knew Jeremiah could hear it. She could feel his waiting on the other end, the nervous energy in his breath, the way he was holding on to hope even as the pause grew heavier. And that made her heart ache even more. Because Jeremiah deserved an answer. He deserved honesty. But Belly wasn't sure she had it in her. She finally spoke, her voice quiet, almost trembling. "Jeremiah." She stopped. The rest of her words caught in her throat. She didn't know how to tell him that his confession both warmed her heart and tore it apart. She didn't know how to admit that she still carried feelings for Conrad, even when she wanted to let them go. Instead, she said the only thing she could manage. "I don't know what to say," and that was the truth. Messy, complicated, unfinished. The silence that followed was sharp, but it wasn't empty. It was full of everything unspoken, everything unresolved. Belly's mind spun in circles, her heart racing faster than the fireworks still crackling outside. She wanted to comfort him, to tell him she cared, to ease the vulnerability he had just laid bare. But she also wanted to protect herself, to avoid making promises she wasn't sure she could keep. In that fragile space, Belly realized something painful. Sometimes the hardest part of love isn't choosing between two people. It's choosing between your heart's confusion and your need for clarity. And right now, clarity felt miles away. The line between them buzzed with silence. a fragile tether holding Jeremiah and Belly together. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. Belly's soft admission, "I don't know what to say," still hung in the air, heavy and unresolved. Jeremiah sat in that pause, staring at the night sky bursting with fireworks above him, his chest tight with everything he hadn't dared to speak before tonight. He could have let it go. He could have filled the quiet with a joke, lightened the moment, given her an escape. That was the role he had always played, the easy one, the safe one. The boy who knew how to make her smile when things got too heavy. But tonight, Jeremiah realized he couldn't keep being that boy. Not when the truth was clawing its way to the surface. Demanding to be heard, his voice came low, steady, but trembling at the edges. "Then just listen," he said softly. "Don't say anything if you're not ready. Just hear me out." Belly's breath caught. She didn't interrupt, didn't protest. She sat still, phone pressed to her ear, bracing herself. Jeremiah exhaled slowly, watching his breath turn white in the winter air. His words were no longer careful. They were raw, stripped down, fragile but determined. "I've spent so long pretending I'm okay, smiling, laughing, acting like it doesn't matter. Like you don't matter. But you do, Belly. You always have. And I can't carry it into another year without saying it out loud." The words struck like sparks in the dark. Belly closed her eyes, her heart twisting, because she could feel the weight of his truth pressing through the line. "I thought maybe if I stayed quiet, if I gave you space, I'd learn to move on. But the more I tried to let you go, the more I realized." He faltered, his throat tightening, then forced himself to finish. "You're the person I want to call at midnight. You're the person I think about when the year ends and the new one begins. And it kills me, Belly, that I've been too afraid to just say it." Belly's fingers curled tighter around the phone, her knuckles pale. She wanted to respond, to ease the tremor in his voice, but her throat locked up. Every word he spoke pulled her in deeper, tearing open feelings she'd buried, forcing her to face the pieces of her heart she didn't want to examine. The tone of the conversation had shifted. This wasn't small talk anymore. This wasn't two old friends catching up or exchanging polite greetings. This was Jeremiah laying his soul bare, line by line, with nowhere to hide. He didn't stop. His voice cracked but carried on, stronger with every word. "I don't know what's between us anymore. I don't know if it's too late or if I've already lost my chance. But I can't let another year start with me keeping it all inside. You needed to hear it. Even if it changes nothing." Belly opened her mouth, then closed it again. The room around her buzzed with laughter and cheer, but she felt miles away, sitting alone with his confession. The boy who had always made things light had suddenly turned heavy. She didn't know how to hold it. Her silence stretched long enough that Jeremiah almost regretted speaking. But before he could retreat into apology, Belly whispered, so soft he almost missed it, "Jeremiah." Her voice cracked, caught between tenderness and fear. And though she didn't say more, he felt the shift. The barrier of politeness had fallen away. They were standing in the rawness of honesty now, exposed, vulnerable, with no easy way back.